the man will probably walk in there and go, I want a 10K pay rise. And I'll be like, whereas women will go, I need to prove myself so that I deserve this, rather than showcasing the value that you've already added.
Hi everyone, welcome back to What I Wish I Knew Sooner. I'm Senna.
And I'm Serenity.
And today we're joined by Jess Lindfield. She is a career strategist, author of Play the Game, founder of Embrace Her, and commercial enablement leader at the Financial Times.
Jess helps ambitious women build careers that are not just successful on paper, but sustainable in real life. We're talking ambition, burnout, playing the corporate game strategically, and biggest career dilemmas women are facing right now.
Hi Jess, welcome to What I Wish I Knew Sooner. For anyone that doesn't know you, would you be able to give us a quick introduction to who you are, what you do?
Thanks, guys. I'm so excited to be here and really honored to have this conversation with you today. So I guess to give like a quick snapshot of who I am and my background, I think it all starts from my experience in my corporate career, because I've been in corporate for almost a decade now, and I think that's the true catalyst for where I am today. I actually started as a sales advisor in a call center, so a pretty brutal environment, and I was quickly promoted at the age of 21 to take on my first team. And that was kind of when I got my first, I guess, taste of leadership. And since then, I've worked around a variety of different roles, both in large commercial teams, but also in strategic smaller teams. And throughout that period, there's quite a few challenges and lessons that I kind of navigate along the way, which brought me to create Embrace Her in 2023. And that's kind of, what I focus on in parallel with my career. And I guess that would be me in a nutshell.
Wow, amazing. I love Embrace Her. Yeah. I watch your stories every day, and like just the content you put out there is just really inspiring.
Oh, that's so kind.
So thank you. And from the outside, your career looks incredibly successful. So like well done on everything that you've achieved. It's so impressive. But what has your personal experience of ambition actually been like behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's such an interesting one, because I think my relationship with ambition is something that's constantly evolving, especially through different periods of life. I remember in my early days, I was very hungry, determined, and that kind of ambition drove me forward, which is definitely what I need, and it served me well at that time. But I think you then need to consider how that's going to be sustainable in the long term, which for me wasn't the case. So I think now my relationship with ambition is less about material goals and having these, I guess, milestones or goalposts, like get that promotion, be the head of this big shiny title, get this house, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff that people kind of gravitate towards. And it's more about, funnily enough, I just think about like, what do I want my day in the life to look like? And how can I move closer to that? Like, what is literally my dream day in the life?
Such a good way to think about it.
And I'm like, okay, how can I move 1% closer to that? And I think that still is a healthy relationship with ambition, but it's a bit more sustainable because it doesn't feel overwhelming, I suppose, because you're just thinking about, cool, what do I want my day to look like for the rest of my life?
Yeah. So would you say your definition of success has changed throughout your career?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I think as well, because I learnt this the hard way. When I was really young, I was like, right, I've got a taste for like the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
The first thing was like, okay, now I'm in a leadership role. What's the next promotion from there? And I did everything possible to get that next promotion, which was at 24, I was leading a national outbound sales team of 45 staff.
Wow.
And
Wow.
which was a massive responsibility. But I didn't think about what that actually meant, what my life would look like doing that role, what it actually involved. I just thought, wow, that's the next run up. Sounds really shiny and impressive. I'm going to go for that. 6 months in, I absolutely hated it. And I was like, how do I get out of this as quickly as possible? And so luckily for me, because at 24, that's a great learning to then be able to carry through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was such an important lesson for me as I've moved forward in my career and how I think about what it is that I want to strive for and how I connect my ambition to my goals, but then the broader ecosystem of my life.
Did you say you were 23 when you were doing that?
Yeah, 24.
24. Jeez, that is unreal.
Yeah, you must have been the youngest person in the room, right?
Yeah, when I some of my earlier days, like, it was absolutely terrifying. So, like, I was like, what talk like imposter syndrome through the roof, but I would just kind of get on with it, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
the first time I got promoted into the leadership role at 21, I point blank had this guy go to me, "What do you think you can teach me? I've been in this company for 8 years. You've been here 6 months, and I'm old enough to be your dad." And I was like, do you know what? You're right. I have no idea. And I was like so humbling. But I think it's a good leadership lesson to be like, you don't have to be the oldest or have
Yeah.
the most tenure, but what you can do is show up for people and help them be their best.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a steep learning curve, but one of the lessons that I've carried.
You created Embrace Her
Mhm,
to be the resource that you felt like you wish you had sooner.
mm.
What do you feel like was missing for ambitious women trying to climb the corporate ladder?
I think for me, it was so interestingly, I had a lucky period where I could actually take some time to reflect. I know we spoke about previously, I am not the best at taking time or taking stock of what I've done or what I've learned or anything like that. So I think when I first moved to England, I took that time to think about what would I want to do differently in this next chapter of my career? What were some of the challenges that I had to overcome? I mean, working in leadership teams where there was, 25 leaders and only myself and two others that were women was like character building to say the
Yeah.
least. So I know that the challenges that I was kind of suffering in silence at the time were definitely not isolated to just me. And so I felt drawn to figure out like how can I just support other women so that, as people go with up the leadership chain and things like that beyond just early to mid career, but in senior career, women have felt like empowered and they have the tools and resources to, carry them through their career, create a bit of a community and things like that.
I think it's so important to inspire other women to go for it and go after their dreams.
Yeah, women supporting women. It's
Yeah.
so important.
So when women come to you now,
Mm.
what are they actually struggling with when they come to you? So is it confidence? Is it clarity? Is it boundaries? That's a big one.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because one that comes up, I recently did a poll on my stories around like what would be the most important thing that you would like me to do, like a free webinar on.
Yeah.
And I gave 3 options of my core webinars.
Yeah.
So the first one is like about building unshakable confidence. The second one is about developing your career strategy. And the third one was around well-being. And interestingly, only like 7% of women were like, "Oh yeah, I'd like something on well-being," which I thought was like crazy because I thought more and more people would be kind of leaning into that burnout territory. But actually, the top one was build unshakable confidence. But it was shortly followed by a career strategy. And I think from the conversations that I've had is we have probably a bit of a mixed perception around what confidence actually means. And I think sometimes what I observe is we say, "Oh, I want to be more confident." And we just kind of think of like, a bit more bravado, a bit more
Yeah.
loud, like all of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But I actually think that true confidence is really dependent on the context that it's in because, I could be really confident having a conversation with you, but then in a different setting, that I have no experience in at all, that I've never done before, I would be not confident
Yeah.
because I'm not familiar with it. I've never done it. And so that confidence is the most common thing and like speaking up and boundaries definitely come into play, but I always try to challenge my community, my audience and the women that I connect with to actually think about self-trust over confidence because it's not about being more confident, it's about having more courage to do hard things even when it feels really scary.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I've learned that having self-trust is so important because if you keep promises to
Mm,
yourself and you believe in yourself and you can see yourself achieving those promises
mm,
that you've kept yourself, it builds your confidence so much more.
honestly.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's like giving yourself the evidence and the proof that you can do hard things. I think often when we're trying to build confidence, we want to present ourselves a certain way for people's perception. But actually, it's more about, it doesn't really matter what they think. It's what you think of yourself and the relationship that you have with yourself, and trusting that no matter what, you're capable to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or even if people don't like it or have whatever take on whatever you're trying to deliver, that you'll still be fine and that you'll figure yourself out as you work through that.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of women that I know, friends, colleagues, even myself, have struggled a lot with imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Do you find a lot of women approaching you, asking you for help with that? And what would you say the anecdote for that is? Is it building that confidence?
Mm. Okay, people don't love it when I say this. But you just have to get it out of your own way. I feel like I wish that there was kind of like some soft, magical silver bullet that I could give you to be like, it's okay, like totally normal. I think the interesting thing about imposter syndrome is, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but what I believe is you actually just have to do the thing, and you just have to own the fact and kind of get out of your own way.
Yeah.
I think it does come down to mindset. And the more you feed into things and give things labels, I think sometimes it gets worse, because you start to identify with the fact, well, I have imposter syndrome, which your brain then takes that as a message of, well, I have this kind of thing. Whereas if you acknowledge that, yes, I feel uncomfortable in this room and I don't know more than other people in here, but what a brilliant opportunity for me to learn so much from all of these experts around me. I think that kind of shift is what is so important, because instead of looking at the negatives and trying to judge yourself, you should be focusing on what a brilliant opportunity that you have.
And that makes sense, because I think it is the way you talk to yourself, because you're in that room for a reason. They gave you that opportunity,
100%.
but you just talk yourself into thinking, I can't do this.
Mm.
I'm not good enough. I'm not experienced enough. But you wouldn't have got that opportunity if you weren't.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's always a good signal that you're stretching yourself outside of your comfort zone, because your brain wants to keep you safe. So they're going to do everything to kind of ground you in the fact that, no, this is too scary, this is too hard, you shouldn't be here. But actually, that's where you want to push past those thoughts that you have. That's going to get you closer to, a growth moment and things like that.
Yeah,
Sure.
I can relate to that, because I've been asked at work to present in front of so many people this like demo of this marketing tool we're using. And I've not done that before, but because
Yeah.
they saw my videos of like speaking online, like public speaking, they were like, okay, Serenity can do that. And at first I was
It's
like,
so different.
yeah, it's so different.
Like,
And I was like, and then I was like, think about it, Seren. It was on your vision board to speak like
yeah.
it out loud
Yeah.
in front of people. And my brain was trying to keep me safe, but then I was like, no, do it.
Yeah.
You want to stay in your comfort zone, but it'll be
I think
good.
one thing that we heard actually from a previous guest is that confidence is built through repeated behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the more you
completely.
put yourself out there, the more you're naturally just going to grow, and you're going to be better and more used to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and I use this example all the time. So people are probably like, okay, she says this every time. But it's kind of like when you first learn to drive a car and you have no idea what you're doing and you're really nervous and you're really scared. Your mum's probably like yelling at you and you're like, get me out of here. Like, what is going on? But then after a while, because you do it so much, you're like, actually, you know what? I'm not going to die. Hopefully, like, this is going to be fine. And then you get to a point where sometimes you've driven home and you can't even remember because you're so lost in thought that you've become so good at doing the thing. And I think that's such a good example of starting something that's like super relatable. Everyone kind of, well, a lot of people experience learning how to drive. I think that's such a good example of entering something with no skills, no capabilities at doing something. You feel really scared, really nervous, and you have external factors that are kind of screaming at you, to then get to a point where you're now confident and you've gone on this journey that actually everything's fine.
Yeah.
And I guess that goes back to trusting yourself again.
Completely.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, whether you're like in a 9 to 5 or not. Like, just believe in yourself.
I think a part of it as well is like your journey with resilience. Like, I think it's become because I wasn't always I wasn't confident. I think people's perception of me now is that I am confident, and in certain realms I definitely am, but obviously there's a lot of places where I'm not confident. We're all human. Like, I still have insecurities. But I think the biggest shift for me was doing really hard things and kind of proving to myself that I could work through that. Specifically, like even moving here to a completely new country was so challenging. I remember saying to my friend, I was like, I feel like I'm literally being skull dragged through growth right now. Like I've got no other option. And like the stubbornness in me was like, I obviously am not moving home. Like I have to make this work. But then I'm like, okay, well, I've done that. I can like do anything. And so it kind of is showcasing to yourself proof and evidence that everything will be fine. And I often find as well, even if things feel really big and scary in the moment, usually they're really not that big of a deal and it's not that deep
It's
at the end of
not.
the day. Like people will probably forget anyway. Like if you think about like how often you're focused on yourself and the perception people have of you, everyone is kind of like that. So it's a really nice, I guess, thought to think people are probably not going to remember anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
I always tell myself that, like, if there's something I don't want to do at work, maybe like a presentation or something, or a piece of work I'm stressing about and I've stayed up late doing, I always think, will this matter in 2 days?
Yes.
Yeah. I also think as well, it's like totally fine to be nervous or like not comfortable. Like a good example of this is last year I was the chair of an enablement conference. So I had to do like an opening keynote.
Yeah.
And even though I know what I'm talking about, it's about my job
Yeah.
and I feel really confident in the content, it still doesn't make it any easier to like get on a stage and talk to over 100 people and they're all just looking at you and you're just like, oh my gosh. And I know for me that when I'm in those situations, usually like the first 20 seconds, I'll stand there and I'll feel it in my knees. My chest will go like tight. My palms will be sweating. And it's like, that's fine. Like, I know that's going to happen. I know my body is going to be like, oh my God, this is really scary. But then I think in your preparation, knowing that that's going to happen and not trying to avoid it, but just embrace it has helped me kind of move past it a lot quicker. So instead of being like, when I get up there, I'm not going to feel any of those things, I'm thinking, I am going to feel those things, but it's going to be okay because I'll come out the other side with a new skill or, 1% better than what I was previously. So I always try to not like resist or like get rid of those feelings, but just embracing them.
That's such a good tip because I resonate with that so much. 'Cause I had to do a presentation last week. I felt so confident in what I was presenting. I knew it back to front. As soon as I was about to go on the call, like it feels really tight. I can't breathe. Like my heart's beating. My voice starts shaking, and I'm like, "What is going on?"
Yeah,
I know what I'm
100%.
talking about. It's just a natural reaction.
Yeah. It's so weird. I feel like it's every human experiences it. And I think also people can acknowledge and appreciate, like, I just always think, well, you get up here then if you're going to judge me. Like, you talk to all these people. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So,
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk a bit about your book, which I have here. So it's called Play the Game. For anyone that might look at that title and feel a bit uncomfortable with it, maybe they're like, I don't want to play a game. What does that phrase actually mean to you?
yeah. It's just about being strategic. I mean, I think there's no shame in being strategic. I think you can still show up in your career as your authentic self, but be thinking ahead and moving in a way that is going to strengthen your career, get the business, moving forward, of course. But the whole premise of it was just that unfortunately, especially as a woman, you kind of have to play a bit of a game in your career to get ahead. And I think the more of us that play that game, because the men are, then the better diversity we'll see in senior leadership, middle management, and things like that. So, yeah, that was the whole vibe behind it. A bit of tongue in cheek, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And we do have to play the game.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Ever since I started like showing up, like not being afraid, I've been getting more responsibility.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I stayed small and didn't do any of that stuff, or like showed up or like said my thoughts and raised my voice, I just don't think I would be where I am now.
No, I totally agree. And I think that's what keeps driving me forward as well. Is like I always think back to like 22-year-old me and I'm like, I just want to give you like a little hug. I'm like, but like also I'm like, no, I have to do this for the girls. Like, I just think women are so just incredible that when we create these communities and we support each other and we build one another up, there is only good for the world. Like, I deeply believe that. And so even if I can help like one woman, like take a step up or just feel more empowered in the choices that she's making, because it's not to say that, this is purely about climbing the corporate ladder, but it's more about having, you know, well, not confidence even, but feeling empowered to make the choices for you to live a life that you want to live. Kind of coming back to that day in a life piece. Like,
Yeah.
I want women to feel like they don't have self-doubt, that they can show up authentically and move towards a life that's meaningful for them, really.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. It's true though. Like, if we didn't have people like you in the world, who would we watch and who would we have inspire us?
Yeah,
So-
because we can get further together, can't we? Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
always have
Yeah.
to be one woman.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. They always say, like, if you can see it, you can be it. Being visual and bringing other women up means they have more confidence to kind of go after those things, and things feel more attainable than if there was no visibility on that.
So we wanted to touch a little bit about the DARE method.
Mm-hmm.
So you've recently built your work around this method. It's discipline, accountability, responsibility, and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Can you briefly explain the framework that
Yeah.
you've made and how it helps women move from reaction into control?
The DARE method is very Jess coded. I think when you say those words out loud, most people are like, no, thank you. Absolutely not. But I promise it comes from a place of love. I think one thing about me is I'm quite structured and organized. And so any chance I get to put something in some kind of system, I will. With the DARE method, I was reflecting on how do I personally make progress towards my goals or build habits. Of course, I'm incredibly inspired by things like atomic habits. Also, you have like the grow model, smart goals, etc. But I wanted to frame it in something that felt really relevant to me. So discipline first and foremost. I've included that because I really feel passionate about demystifying it as some kind of really structured, rigid, like terrible thing that you have to develop.
Yeah.
That's really, really hard. And I like to shift my community's perception that discipline is not something that's really hard, but it's all about self-love. I think I heard something, honestly, from, I want to say Will Smith, but I could be really wrong there, hopefully. But basically, he was talking about what the reason that discipline is the greatest form of self-love is because you're foregoing that instant gratification for that long-term version of you that you're trying to build. And so it's saying no to the easy, quick, nice things now that you know are probably not going to help you in the long run, whether it's the sleep in, the junk food, whatever. And it's staying committed to yourself, and for your future self. And so I think when you reframe discipline in that way, it does become more palatable, I guess. And you can start to buy into it a little bit more, because I think discipline and consistency kind of go hand in hand with how you can make any type of progress towards what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So that's the first part. Then with accountability, again, another word that people kind of go, get away from me. This woman is crazy. No. So accountability is all about really understanding, well, how are you benchmarking success? Like, if you say you have a goal, what does achieving it actually look like, and how are you going to track that
Yeah.
success? And so that's what accountability is all about, making sure that you know what that looks like. Then if you move into responsibility, that's kind of taking responsibility and ownership for the action that you need to take. So it kind of is, you're in like a bit of a triage, understanding the why, your self-love, like what are you trying to get to? Taking accountability by this is what that benchmark is, and then the responsibility. So this is your plan, or like how you're going to go about doing it.
Yeah.
Finally, efficiency, which is the most important one, is how can you make this as quick and easy and as frictionless as possible, and trying to remove all barriers. So if it's gonna really suck, you're probably not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like, as you're mapping it out, so, like, let's take a really simple example, like going for a walk every day. So, say one of your goals is that you want to be a bit healthier in life, you feel like you're kind of just laying around a bit too much and you know you need to move your body a little bit more. So, for you, you know that that's gonna help with longevity, you've got a family, you wanna be able to play with your kids, so that's kind of gonna drive forward your discipline and your self-love. Then when you think about your accountability, that's really putting some benchmarks around, okay, well, I'm going to go for a walk 3 mornings a week. And once I've got a consistent routine around that and I've proven to myself that I've done that for a month straight, then I know I'm on the right track and that's my accountability. For responsibility, how I'm going to go about that? Well, I'm going to make sure that I do it on days where I'm not working in office because I might get too stressed trying to get ready to commute. So it'll be on my work from home days. That's how I'm going to structure it. Efficiency is then going, okay, what are all of the things that are probably going to prevent me from doing this? Okay, my alarm goes off when it's raining outside. Okay, that's excuse number one. I'm definitely going to be like, oh, well, too bad, so sad, it's raining. Or I could say, I'm going to go for a walk with my umbrella. Probably a more favorable one would be like, well, I'm going to go to my local gym and walk on the treadmill instead. Or it's kind of objection handling yourself and like unblocking everything that will likely be an excuse that you know you will feed yourself.
Yeah.
I think we're so aware of all of the excuses that we give ourselves and we just don't do anything with them. We just pretend they're not there. And then they constantly pop up for us when actually, if you actually sit down and think about a goal that you're having, you can probably draw out all of the things that are going to block you in that moment as well. And I think that's such a critical step to making sure that you are proactively objection handling yourself, because then you'll have that thought and you go, wait a second, no, I said that I would actually do this instead.
Yeah.
And so you're giving yourself that extra tiny bit of a chance to build that consistency.
So is the DARE method in the book and
Yeah.
we'll work through it as an activity?
Yeah, so I put the DARE method at the beginning following the introduction purely because I think it can shape everything. Of course, there's 20 additional lessons in there that really break down what was most pivotal in like the first 7 years of my career. Navigating corporate, but it's the kind of stuff that I felt like you can't just pick up in a textbook somewhere. Like it was the stuff around like emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
handling rejection gracefully, like that kind of stuff that I just wish I had a bit more guidance around rather than navigating it myself. And so I put the DARE method before all of those because I think you can carry that as like a mindset
Yeah.
throughout. And I think of course, there's a lot of scenarios where it plays out in a triage where every single letter is helpful. But then also, I think what I love about it is it flexes. So depending on the circumstances, maybe you just need to think a bit more about your why. And it's not that you need some kind of structured, concrete plan around it, but it's just, feeding your determination when motivation slips or something like that. So I like that it's quite fluid.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the reframing of some traditionally negative words into more positive, I guess, like affirmations in terms of making discipline about loving yourself. So good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It honestly was a game changer for me because I also, like, when I was a lot younger, was just not great at like routine or structure. So it's definitely a skill that I've built and learnt. I think I've always been like very ambitious and very determined, but I realized quite quickly that actually it's the systems that I create for myself that are going to carry me through higher workloads, more intense periods. And so that's when I started to really transition and think about like, okay, well, what systems and structures can I put in place so that I can do this sustainably?
I see that you go for like a walk in the morning every day.
It's actually like, no, because now so many people message me and they're like, yes, keep going. And I'm like, I wake up in the morning and I don't think like, oh, I told myself I would take my umbrella. I go, the girls are waiting on me. Like, I've got to go. I'm like, I literally would die. I know. Actually, it is. I'm like, I've got to go for the baddies, honestly. I've got to get out there. It's like torrential rain. And I'm like, no.
Well done, though. That does take discipline.
Yeah, for sure. So we wanted to talk about some common career dilemmas that women are experiencing. So, a really common situation that we see is that women are working really hard, delivering results, doing everything right, but
Mm.
still not progressing.
Mhm.
At what point do you feel like this stops being about performance and starts being about visibility and that strategy?
Mhm. It's a really good one. I think it depends on the company context. It's really important to be open and candid. I know a lot of women that I've spoken to aren't always communicating that this is directly what they want. So there's kind of a few different areas that we need to think about. I think is the opportunity there in the company is first and foremost, because I have heard of a lot of company where that there just is no opportunity. And I think that's when you can start to reflect on more holistically, well, this is not going to serve me then. What action can I take to change that? Whether that's moving to a different company or a different area of the business and things like that. So that's one thing that is important to consider as part of that. The second thing is around reflecting on the feedback that you've been given so far. I think it's just incredibly important to be constantly after that feedback loop.
Yeah.
If you are struggling to create more visibility for yourself, I think tying it back to the work, where I've seen a lot of friction, I guess, maybe internally or internal tension within women, is thinking that it's about them and it feeling really uncomfortable because they don't want to be like, look how great I am.
Yeah.
And I think actually by showcasing the work and the impact that it's making for the business and the broader strategy is a really powerful way to increase your visibility and your personal brand within an organization without making it feel icky and like all about me kind of thing.
Yeah. So, like, practically, do you have any good tips? Like, for example, if you want to raise your visibility and make it about the impact, should you be sending out emails recapping on what you've achieved that week?
So I think my two favorite tactics are having a close one-to-one relationship with the senior stakeholder. So whether that's nominating yourself for a certain project that will then require them as the sponsor, so you can showcase your work to them and be in their line of sight constantly because they're going to go and advocate for you in rooms that you're not in.
Mm.
So that's the first thing that I would recommend. The second thing is by doing updates or communications to the broader teams, just thinking about like the impact that a piece of work has done. So it's never about like I worked so hard on this or like this took me 5 weeks. It's by implementing this piece of work, we saw a material uplift in whatever, which actually translates to X amount of additional revenue. And that then associates your name and your work with material impact for the business. I think the hard truth about working in corporate is at the end of the day, you're not that important. What is important is the revenue and the
Yeah.
company strategy. And I think the sooner that we come to terms with that and we start leveraging that as a strategy to create our own visibility, I think that's where that untapped potential can really be unlocked. I really I know it sounds like really harsh, but I think in companies, like at the end of the day, if you leave tomorrow, they are going to replace you.
Yeah.
So it's just thinking about what is important to the business and positioning everything that you do as moving the dial for what the business cares about.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you're
Mm.
creating content, it's you, but you're doing it for the other
But
people.
it's never about, it should never be about me. Like that's what I always try to think about. Like
Yeah.
I always think, why would the end viewer care about this? Like, how is it going to help them? How is it going to move them forward in what they're trying to
Yeah.
achieve? And as much as we think it's about us and our own career, actually, where the greatest growth comes from is by focusing your efforts on what you're doing to move other people forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the problem you're solving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think doing updates about the work itself is a really helpful way to create visibility without having that kind of like ick, like, oh, look at me kind of
Well,
thing.
actually, on that note, do you have any advice for people that struggle with speaking up in meetings?
I think again, it just kind of comes back to the like, you've just got to do it. You've got to rip the band-aid off. I think a good way to kind of like soft launch yourself into those environments is when you have meetings that are either on a topic that you're more comfortable on, kind of coming with something a bit more prepared so that you're not trying to respond on the fly, because obviously responding to new information live is a lot more challenging than going into something where you're already privy to the topic and can contribute something meaningful, even if just something really small but important. And I think that's always the best way to kind of start, but having to do that consistently. Another thing that I has worked wonders for me in my career is host meetings, because you don't have to do anything then. You just host and chair the meeting, but it creates a lot of visibility for you. So we have like a department wide showcase, and I now chair those, and I collate the lineup kind of thing.
Yeah.
But basically, it's other people giving a presentation, and I just do the introduction, I lead the questions, and that's a really great way to create more visibility for yourself without being the one like in the spotlight, I guess. So, like, things like that is like a really positive way to start to build that skill and that credibility.
Yeah. I feel like in past companies, I've always got a little bit frustrated with visibility because I know that's the way to, I guess, get your name out, boost your performance, that kind of thing. And I've always noticed certain people in meetings are just good at talking for the sake of it. Whereas I'm one of those people where I feel like I want to input when I have something meaningful to say.
Yeah.
And they'll often get more attention just because, they're good at small talk.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice?
Do you ever have you guys done anything on kind of like personality profiles or anything like that
I think I
before?
have, yeah.
So the reason why I asked that is because I remember when I first, like earlier in my career, and I would be in a team meeting with this guy who was just like on fire. And I'm like, I can't even, my brain is like not even caught up to like where we're at to even have any type of like meaningful contribution.
Yeah.
And I just constantly felt like I couldn't contribute because he was always like basically finishing our boss's sentence. Like he was just like in there. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I haven't even processed the sentence yet, let alone like thought of something to meaningfully reply with. And I do think that there's something in people who just respond without actually hearing the conversation. But then also what I learned, because I flagged with my manager and I was like, I really want to work on this because I feel like I have good stuff that I want to contribute, but I'm just missing my moment.
Yeah.
And we did an exercise on some people, it's kind of connected to introversion and extroverted, but some people are high transmission and some people are low transmission. And then some people are high receptive versus low receptive. And so depending on where you are on those scales would dictate whether you kind of speak to kind of finish your thoughts. So like with him, he would start speaking because his brain would start processing as he's speaking. And so that's why he would like interject. Whereas I'm someone who is like, I need to sit with that for at least 5 seconds, process it, think about it, and then come back to you with my response.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful because then the way we structured our meetings moving forward was a bit more considerate to those different personality types. And obviously that doesn't work in like everyday life. Like you can't be like, hang on a second, what's your personality type? Like what's your profile on this kind of matrix? But I think it is a helpful, I think it's just helpful in the sense that it's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's just that, or like you shouldn't have self-doubt over that. You just process information in a different way, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So I think realizing that first and foremost, and then kind of working on, well, if I am going to be surrounded by these people who are processing their thought as they speak, how am I going to navigate that? And how can I, say my piece as well?
That's really useful. 'Cause I think I'm exactly the same as what you described. You were like, it takes me a while to like, think
Yeah.
of a response.
No, definitely. 'Cause you'll be sitting there and you're just like, what can I
But I actually do feel like the podcast has helped me with this because obviously you have to respond quickly.
Yeah,
So I
that's
think that's
true.
helped me in my work.
Yeah.
One of the biggest learning curves I had around like communication with other people was when I was first in that sales advisor role, selling insurance. Basically, we had this framework around how you dealt with different customers. And because this was an environment where it was outbound call center sales. So, when you like go online and you try to get a quote for something and then they don't give you the price and they start calling you and you're like,
Yeah.
literally leave me alone. Like, I did not want to speak to you. That's why I went online. Yeah. So those are the types of people that we were calling. And so when they would answer the phone, you really had like 20 seconds
Yeah.
to be like, listen to me, please.
Yeah.
But we did a lot around 4 different buyer styles. One was details, one was results driven, one was relationships, and one was feelings. And I think from that framework, I've carried that into any interaction that I just have with anyone now. And so like a results driven person will use like quite definitive language. They're very much like get to the point, very direct, and you can kind of sense that in them quite quickly. And so we would leverage this to adapt to those people. Someone who is more detailed would be like asking about more specific questions to like the actual policy. They would have all of this stuff that they needed to know before they could even think about moving forward with anything. So you would shift your approach again with them to make sure that you're focusing the conversation on trust and answering everything and reassuring them. And then you'd have people who are relationships people and like they didn't give a damn about the insurance. They just wanted to chat to you about like life. And you'd be like, okay, well, we've got to keep this moving. But then you had to kind of lean into it, and it's like they're the people that are like, oh well, how are you going, and you like have that back and forth. And finally the feelings ones were people who would always like lead with words like I feel like this, I feel like that, and it was a little bit more emotive. And I think even those 4 categories have been so helpful in just how I navigate life and interacting with people, because I as part of building relationships, especially in the workplace to get ahead in your career, it is about adapting yourself. And I think you can absolutely be super authentic while also adapting to those around you to build the strongest relationships that you can. So that's a really good like little framework that I always think of. And I do take it one step further and I put someone I know in each category. So like my stepdad is like the most direct like guy I've ever met in my life. So if I'm finding it hard to connect with that person, I always just think, imagine I'm talking to him, and then I can like move past it a little bit quicker. So I just like visualize that there's someone I know that fits into one of those categories and it helps somehow.
That's so good. I love
really-
your framework. Another big thing is money.
Mhm.
A lot of women are like they struggle to negotiate or even ask for money,
Yeah.
like, even during their PDPs or like any salary reviews. So why do you think that hesitation is so common? And what is the smartest way to approach these kind of like talks and conversation?
I think it's definitely known that women are less likely to bring up that conversation, whereas a man will probably walk in there and go, I want a 10K pay rise. And I'll be like,
Literally.
okay. Whereas women will go, okay, what can I prove? Like, it's like this
Yeah.
sense of I need to prove myself so that I deserve this rather than showcasing like the value that you've already added kind of thing. I think in preparing for those conversations, we now live in a world where it's important to think about the entire picture, I think, because as we talk more and more about money, obviously salary increases is incredibly important,
Yeah.
but there's also other things that are really important to women, and whether that's time, flexibility, benefits from the company. And I'm not talking about like free pizza, like that is the worst benefit that companies could ever give you. Like, sorry. But
I literally
We used to work together.
oh really?
We had that one. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. That free pizza on Fridays, I'm like, get real.
Yeah.
But I mean like real benefits, like whether that's they match your is it called super here? Oh my god, I just
What is it?
blanked. Super is like your pension. There we go. Sorry, that was an
yeah.
Australian term for it. I just
Yeah, I
I
love
just
that.
I just glitched back home. But your pension. So, but I think it's about thinking about the entire piece of the puzzle. So, like for me, for example, when I think about my overall package, because my company is such an advocate for the work that I do with Embrace Her, that's an additional thing that when I think about my entire package is really important to me. And like if I then say I went to another company and I was going to get a 20 grand pay rise, but they were going to be like, you can't do social media, I would be like, absolutely not. Like that's not happening. So I think first and foremost, it's getting really clear on like what is it that you are willing to do for that additional pay rise, and having that crystal clear in yourself, because sometimes the additional responsibility as well is not ideal and getting you closer to your day in the life. So I think it's just about thinking about the trade-offs first and foremost. So number one, trade-offs. How will my life look differently if I can negotiate this pay rise, because it could come with extra responsibility. It might mean changing companies, whatever that looks like. Then from there, I think when you're structuring it, it's about demonstrating, again, direct business value that and impact that you've made. I think one of the worst ones to watch out for is, we'll give you a senior title, but we're not going to give you a pay rise right now. I'm like, I know.
Literally.
I'm like, but like your whole role scope has changed.
Yeah.
And so like, what's the go, guys?
Yeah.
So I think as well, it's like completely, obviously that's a decision that people need to make within the realm of their lives. And maybe that senior title is going to give you a bit more prestige. Maybe you're like status driven, whatever, which is totally fine, by the way. But I think it's about just thinking about overall, what is it that you're trying to achieve? I think when negotiating it, it's about understanding how does that structure within your company. So a lot of companies have op plans that are already pre-decided. So it's really important that you get your timing right around when you're having those conversations, and you can't just do it randomly at that time, because you kind of need to have built that credibility up. I would bring up pay at least once a quarter in a one-to-one, and just reassess, like, are you happy with like what you're being paid? Is there any conversations coming up in the next 6 to 12 months where there's an opportunity to renegotiate that? What can you do to be involved in that, and even just have a discussion around it?
Yeah.
So I think that makes it less high stakes, because it's just a standing agenda item that you and your boss speak about. And I think that's a really critical part to have as part of those discussions.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Noted.
Yeah, I've literally been like, the reason I didn't respond is because, like, fuck, I've got some thinking to do.
I was like, I actually don't know if it's been a while since I've asked about it.
Yeah.
I just think, like, what's the worst that they could say? No, and you're in the same position.
Yeah. So
Like, you may as well just ask.
no,
Yeah.
so true.
Because I think as well, if they say no, then you can say, well, what would need to happen, or what do you need to see from me to have that pay increase? Like, if I wanted, say, a 10K pay increase, what would need to happen for me to get to that? And then you can work with your manager, because at the end of the day, yes, they're there to be your boss, but they should, if they're a good leader, be supporting you to achieve your career goals.
Yeah.
And I think just having that open, direct conversation is so important, because then you're all on the same page. I think as well, like, just doing a good job doesn't mean that your boss goes, oh, she probably wants to be promoted. Like, no, you need to be like, I want to be promoted, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that, because obviously in a big company, like you said, they do have structured performance reviews and plans. But for people that work in smaller companies, if you don't ask, you don't get. Your manager might just assume, she's happy, she has plans, she doesn't complain.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it makes all the difference. And I think the more you have it as like a frequent conversation point, the less intense it feels.
That's so true, because you're like talking about it.
We just talk
bringing
about it.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like this big thing where you
Big
feel like
scary
nervous.
thing where you
You're
like come in with like a proposal,
Yeah.
like, right, okay, let me tell you all the things I've done since I worked here.
Okay, so often we see women feeling stuck at work. So perhaps they're not quite unhappy enough to leave yet, but they're also not fulfilled in their current job. How do you know when a role is misaligned and it's time to move on?
My first sense is going with my gut, but I always challenge my gut by reflecting a bit deeper. So I think if you're really just bored in your role, I think you kind of will know that. And it's being a bit more honest with yourself around, okay, yeah, it's going to be really hard to find a new job. I kind of can't be bothered. But then if you don't, where will you be in 5 years' time? And is that how you want your life to look?
Yeah.
And if not, then you probably have to do something differently to address it. And I think that sounds like really like blunt, but that's the kind of conversation that you have to have with yourself. Because if you're choosing to do nothing about it, then you kind of have made your bed and you have to lay in it.
It's so true.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah. And I think as well, there's a difference between feeling blocked and being bored, I think. So if you're just bored in your role, you're not being challenged, but you're also not doing anything about it, I think that's when you probably need to just take a bit of a reflection inwards and think about like, well, what is it that you actually want out of life and like out of your career? And are you okay if you just keep plateauing and keep on this trajectory? And if so, great, love that for you, slay. But if not, then you probably need to do something about it. When it comes to being blocked, this is more in the sense of like, okay, you're trying to get on extra projects. You've got all the mentors. You've gone for a promotion and been knocked back. Like you're doing everything you can to try to progress, and either the opportunity is not there, or potentially, and this one's a little bit of a harder pill to swallow, but maybe you just don't have the skills or capabilities yet.
Yeah.
And you just need to work through that, which is also okay. And I think the quicker you can recognize where your gaps are, the quicker you can address them. And I think in that sense, there's kind of two different avenues you can go down. One is when your company has no opportunity for you, and that's having quite a frank discussion about what does that mean? Is there like potential in the future? And then again, making a tough call on, well, you know that there's no opportunities. Do you just want to stay kind of hitting this ceiling, or are you willing to make a big enough change to shift that direction? So that's like the path one. The second one is if it comes down to your skills and capabilities, get a coach. Like, I think we all focus a lot on mentors, but we don't
Yeah.
focus enough on being coached. And a lot of companies might offer that. Also, you could, I know that they can be a little bit to invest in, but maybe you could write a proposal to your company to get them to pay for it potentially,
Yeah.
and connect it back to your broader development, see if there's training budget, just invest in yourself and showcase that you're really taking that feedback seriously. And then it gives you something to anchor on. For example, I was knocked back from a role last year. And off the back of that, I was like, right, so what are the gaps? Like, what would you want to see from me?
Yeah.
And then with that feedback, I was like, okay, well, can I please be on like one of these bigger strategic projects? And then I've been put on that. And then 9 months later, I had a conversation with the person who gave me that feedback, and they were like, my perception's completely changed. If we did a redo today, then I totally think you're capable. And so I think that's a really good example of just like taking the feedback on board. Sure, it might hurt your feelings to begin with, but you'll honestly be fine.
Yeah.
It's not about you as a person. It's just like we all have opportunities to grow and learn, right? So I think it's not about you as a person. It's a really great opportunity for you to have clarity on, well, what can I do next to then grow and develop and then hopefully be in a better position next time. And so now I feel confident that if that opportunity comes up again, or if there's one similar, I've now built the proof that I can then showcase as part of that from the last time. And I think that's something that's so important
Yeah.
once you've been rejected for something, to showcase like, well, what did you do differently off the back of that? And the strategy is not go and cry in bed and just be like, oh, what was me? Like that's not it. So yeah.
Love her.
You know how people, I mean, this isn't great advice, but you know how people use ChatGPT as a therapist?
Yes.
I actually this year asked it to act as my career coach.
Oh my God, amazing.
It was really useful. So I basically sent like a voice note type thing, explaining what I do, what I want to do, where I want to go, what my issues are. And it's been really useful for me, like breaking down my next steps, giving me a yearly plan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if people don't have access to a career coach.
100%. I think that's a good idea. I think as well, like, ChatGPT is such a good, like, sounding board, and, like, it can
Yeah.
give you such good direction. I think ChatGPT is a little bit of a people pleaser,
Yeah.
but that's a different conversation. But I think for what you need in that context around, like, a bit of direction, especially if you are feeling a little bit lost, or you're not like, if you're like, "Okay, I've been told I need to increase my commercial acumen," and you're like, "What the heck, like, is
Yeah.
that? And how do I develop that skill?" I think that's such a good tactic to use to at least get some ideas and form a bit of a plan for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's this like pressure about timing. So, like career progression, relationships, and I guess like life milestones.
Mm,
How should ambitious women think about their timelines in a way that doesn't create anxiety and,
mm.
like, that sense of falling behind? Because I think a lot of us in the millennial career crisis is feeling that right now.
It's really So when I was younger, like 21, I was like, "Oh my God, impending doom. Like, I need to figure my life out yesterday."
Yeah.
And now that I'm in my 30s, maybe because I'm more sure of myself and I know who I am, I've felt a shift in kind of slowing down a little bit and realizing that I actually do have a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really hard one. And I'm not sure that I've completely cracked it myself, to be honest. I think as women, we're just under so much more pressure as well, especially if you want to have a family.
Yeah.
They're like your body clock, like you've got to get out there and have babies now. Geriatric pregnancies at 35. I'm like, 35, you're like still young, I swear.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? And so I think time pressure is something, candidly, like, I haven't cracked yet. I think even now, and I was saying this to you before, like, I even now have to ground myself because I do put pressure on myself. Like, I'm like, I have to do more, be more. Like, this isn't enough. Like, I'm not showing up enough, and I don't give myself enough credit almost. And I think that feeds into like where I'm at in my timeline. And so that's something that I'm like constantly trying to work on, but I've definitely not fully cracked it. What does help me though is trying to not compare myself to other people first and foremost, because you would realize, like, even in this space, like, especially when you're in the online world, social media, anything to do with that, your exposure to like comparative
Yeah.
people is just like insane.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to kind of fall down a slippery slope of comparison. And what I try to do, because everything is just shoved down your throat these days, everyone's fantastic life. And I know that social media is not real because I do social media and I know that it's not real because
No.
I trust me, if I put every single thing on social media, no, nobody wants to see that. You know what I mean? So it is, I know it's like a highlight reel, but what has helped me is less about trying to focus on the timeline, because I think focusing on the timeline actually creates more pressure, and finding more opportunities to just be and just exist.
Yeah.
And that is so hard, but every time I do it, I feel so much better for it. So it's only something recent that I've been trying to do, but every 6 months I've been taking like a 2-week break from all digital stuff. So I block my emails, like I'll take time off work, I'll block my emails, I'll log off all social media, and I'll just be like 100% present. And I lock all the apps on my phone. The only thing I can do is like take photos because memes, but
Obviously.
obviously. But it's so crazy how, like, I think this sense of urgency is just like pumped into us every single day from this device that's like attached to us. And whilst it doesn't solve the internal pressure that we can put on ourselves, it gives you like a bit of a breather from what I believe is what causes a lot of that stress, which is seeing everyone else doing so many amazing things
Yeah.
every second of every single day. Like, it's nonstop. And so I think having those moments where you can be ultra present, it's really hard, by the way, if you think of doing it. Like, the first 2 days, I kind of like, I'm like some kind of addict. I like pick up my phone like 100 times. I'm like, oh, nothing to look at there because I'm blocked on everything.
Yeah.
And then by like day 3, I feel like I can honestly feel my nervous system just be like, oh, okay, actually, it's fine. And I think as well, it's kind of like the little behaviors every single day. Like, why are we always rushing? Like, Like,
Yeah.
why am I rushing to eat my breakfast when I've got half an hour?
This
Do you know
is
what I
so
mean?
true.
I'm like scoffing it down, but with nowhere to be. I'm like working from home. It's just like we're in this state of like rushing.
All the time.
And so I think trying to catch yourself in those moments is like the only way I found to like make it a bit more bearable, like the external pressures, is to try to be more present, slow down. It's really freaking hard.
Yeah.
I've not cracked the code, but it is what has helped me during moments. And I think it's been quite a helpful preventative measure as well when it comes to like burnout and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we're always living in survival mode and rushing, and that is what
Honestly.
causes burnout, isn't it?
I'm like, I'm getting an email, not being chased by a bear. Like, what is
Yeah.
going on? Like, internal systems, like alarm bells 24/7. The fourth coffee of the day does not help.
I think a lot of people in London, especially though, like, where are you rushing off to?
No, because honestly, let me tell you. So I'm from the Sunshine Coast, which is like
Yeah.
a small coastal town, basically. It's like, I think there's like 300,000 people spread across like 70 kilometers. So it's quite chill, relaxed. We're not rushing anywhere. And so when I first came to London, I was like, literally, what is going on? But now I am like a Londoner, and I'm like, someone's like in my way, like in the tube system. I'm like, get out of my way. Like, I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, I need to breathe. It's actually not that deep.
It's not
like,
that deep, honestly.
it's so much. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to reflect. Everything is going to be okay. I'm still going to get to work on time. Do you know what I mean?
It's tubes and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
God.
caught myself doing this the other day. I was like, actually, Simone, why are you running? Like,
I know. I know.
it's just so dumb. So fun.
Oh, yeah. I
Oh,
totally
for
relate.
real.
So, yeah.
So we always finish with this one question.
Okay.
What is one thing that you wish you knew sooner?
One thing that I wish I knew sooner.
No one prepares themselves.
I know, which is like probably like the most obvious thing that you should be thinking about.
You're so thrown by the question.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, because I just did a post the other day around like a few things that I wish I knew sooner from like a corporate edition. But I think I'm going to go more like personal development, like journey era. So I think for me is I'm so much more capable than what I like lead myself to believe. And I wish that I knew that sooner, because now that I understand that, I can be a lot more courageous, braver in how I show up. And it kind of comes back to that self-trust thing and believing that you have the capabilities to do hard things. And so I think that's something that I wish I realized sooner, for sure.
Love that.
I really like that. Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people need to hear as well.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I love that. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Jess.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, this has been such a good chat. I feel like we've just been like hanging out, having a chat. I've loved
I
it.
like that. I love it.
Well, yeah, I was saying before, like, this has been so helpful personally for me as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I've loved it.
A lot-
Thanks for having me.
Thank you too.